You can't control the world. But what can you control? Picture this. Your phone is buzzing. Emails piling up. Deadlines closing in like a trap. A message pops up, passive-aggressive. Again. And outside chaos. Sirens. Horns. The world is loud. You're overwhelmed. Your heart's racing. And in that moment, you feel like everything is slipping out of your hands. But here's the real question. What do you control? Not the traffic. Not the message. Not the deadlines. But there's one thing. One thing you do control. Your response. There's a method, ancient, timeless, ruthless in its clarity. Stoicism. It doesn't promise a peaceful world. It teaches you how to find peace in a chaotic one. Let's begin. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy. It's a survival tool, a code, a mental shield, born in chaos, forged by pressure, perfected by emperors, like Epictetus, a slave who found freedom inside his mind, or Marcus Aurelius, a ruler of millions who still questioned himself every night, and Seneca, wealthy, powerful, yet obsessed with time, not gold. They faced betrayal, disease, death, war. Sound familiar? We face different storms today. Information overload. Constant comparaison. Mental burnout. The pressure to react instantly. But the rule hasn't changed. You don't control the world. You control how you move through it. And that is your power. In this video, we'll explore 9 Stoic principles, each one simple but powerful, each one paired with actionable tools you can use today. No fluff, no gurus, just ancient clarity for modern noise. Ready? Let's start with what matters most. Control. Let's start with something brutally honest. Most of your stress doesn't come from what happens. It comes from how you respond to what happens. You see, there are 2 types of people in this world: those who get tossed around by everything outside of them, and those who remain steady because they've learned to focus on what's within. That's the foundation of Stoicism. And it starts with what the Stoics called the circle of control. Picture a circle. Inside it are the things you can influence directly: your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your attitude, your values, your discipline. Outside that circle, the weather, what other people think, the economy, your past, other people's emotions, whether someone texts you back. And yet, most of us spend 90% of our energy outside the circle. We try to force people to understand us. We try to control outcomes, timing, opinions, perception. And we wonder why we're anxious, burned out, and resentful. Epictetus, a man who was literally born a slave, once said, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters. So I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. He didn't say, change the world. He said, own your choices. And, centuries later, Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, added this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose, and in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. Let that sink in. So the question is, how do you build that space? How do you stop yourself from reacting out of anger, fear, or insecurity? You build what I call the mental pause buffer. It's a 5-second tool, and it can change everything. Here's how it works. When something triggers you, a message that pisses you off, a driver who cuts you off, a post that hits a nerve, pause. Don't react. Just breathe. Silently. Intentionally. Then ask yourself, what response would someone I respect give right now? What would my highest self do? Is this worth giving away my peace? Because here's the secret. You're not responsible for what happens. You're responsible for what you do next. Let's get even more practical. Here's a Stoic challenge for you this week. Choose 3 real-life situations where you'd normally react without thinking. Write them down right now. Examples: when someone interrupts you in a meeting, when a stranger's comment online hits a nerve, when you feel the urge to check your phone for the 10th time in an hour. Now, rehearse a new response in advance. Plan for it. Visualize it. Practice it. That's what modern Stoicism looks like. Because control isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about owning your presence, no matter the chaos around you. Let me leave you with this. You don't have to control the storm. You just have to learn how to stand still inside it. That's where your real power begins. Not in forcing the world to be calm, but in becoming the person who doesn't get shaken when it's not. That's the Stoic path. And this is your first step. Let's go deeper. Everyone knows the concept of control, but very few people live by it. Even fewer design their daily energy around it. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't take command of your mental space, the world will colonize it for you. Let me show you how it happens. You open your eyes. The alarm hits. Before a single deep breath, your fingers reach for the phone. And just like that, you've given your sacred mind to someone else's noise. A message, a headline, a comment, a highlight reel. Now your mind is juggling. Someone's panic, someone's success, someone's tragedy, someone's opinion, someone's fake smile. And your nervous system hijacked before your feet touch the floor. You're tired before coffee. Triggers before breakfast. Scattered before clarity. And none of it was your storm to carry. This is what happens when your circle of control becomes an open-door policy. Let's come back to that circle. In the center, your thoughts, your choices, your emotional tone, your standards, your presence, your response. Outside the circle, everything else. But most people spend 90% of their energy reacting to what's outside. They fight ghosts in their inbox. They chase validation in comment sections. They spiral over what might happen, what might be said, what might be lost. It's not stress. It's spiritual leakage. And the Stoics saw it coming. Freedom, Epictetus wrote, is the only worthy goal. It's achieved by disregarding what lies beyond our control. Not ignoring, not resisting, but releasing, like unclenching a fist. So here's the question that changes everything. Do you protect your energy, or do you leave it wide open every morning? Because it only takes one deliberate ritual to reclaim that power. I call it the morning control checklist. 5 questions, 5 minutes. Every morning before the world walks in, what do I choose to focus on today? What thought pattern will I keep? And what will I drop? What is outside my control that I will release now? What is my emotional baseline, and how will I return to it when tested? What kind of presence will I embody? Calm, sharp, grounded. This isn't journaling. It's mental engineering. You're not just writing, you're framing your reality before it frames you. And here's a powerful bridge to modern leadership psychology. In executive coaching, they speak of the zone of influence. You don't control outcomes. You influence outcomes through consistency, clarity, and calm. Picture this. You lead a team. You've prepped the plan. But suddenly, the client changes direction. Deadlines shift. Tension rises. You don't control that chaos, but you do control. How you communicate, how you frame the disruption, how you protect the emotional tone of the room. You can spiral, or you can speak like this. Here's what changed. Here's how we adapt. Here's what stays in our hands. And the room breathes deeper. That's not domination. That's energetic stability. And people follow that. Why? Because deep down, we all seek one thing. Someone who doesn't flinch when the world shakes. That's Stoic control. Not suppressing the storm, but redirecting the lightning. And once you train your mind to begin the day from the inside out, something rare happens. You stop leaking. You stop chasing. You stop solving problems that don't belong to you. And what you gain is not just peace, it's precision. Mental clarity isn't just a mood, it's a strategy. So here's your reminder. Your mind is not a sidewalk. It's a sacred temple, and not every voice deserves entree. Before the day begins, filter, frame, fortify, because real control isn't loud, it isn't reactive, and it never needs to prove itself. Real control is quiet sovereignty. And once you build your mornings around it, your entire life begins to follow. What you allow into your mind becomes the architect of your soul. It doesn't take chains to keep you controlled anymore. Just an algorithm. You don't even realize you're being pulled until you catch yourself doom scrolling at 1 a.m. or suddenly feeling inadequate after watching someone's 10-second reel of fake perfection. That's the thing about modern manipulation. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It feeds you 1,000 tiny hits of distraction, comparison, stimulation, until your focus is no longer yours, until your self-worth is outsourced to strangers. We think we're making choices, but in truth, most people are just reacting to curated feeds, trending sounds, breaking news, and invisible expectations. The Stoics would have called this slavery, not of the body, but of the mind. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You become what you give your attention to." So the real question is, who's pulling the strings of your attention? And more importantly, do you even notice the strings? Every time you pick up your phone without intention, you reinforce the habit of being led. Every time you consume outrage or gossip, you train your nervous system to stay in defense mode. Every time you compare your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel, you wound your self-esteem without realizing it. No one sets out to lose control of their mind, but it happens, one notification at a time. That's why mental clarity today requires not just discipline but discernment. A Stoic doesn't consume less just to appear virtuous. He consumes less because he values what's within more than what's thrown at him. Here's a challenge. For 1 week, practice what I call input detox. Delete one app that drains your peace. Unfollow 3 accounts that trigger envy, anxiety, or fake urgency. Turn off all notifications. Yes, all of them. And most importantly, before opening anything, pause and ask, is this going to strengthen me or splinter me? Will this leave me calmer or more chaotic? If the answer is silence, then silence is your answer. You're not weak for feeling drained. You're just overfed with noise and starving for stillness. And no amount of scrolling will fix that. Real strength today isn't about always being informed. It's about being intact, being hard to shake, being so deeply rooted within that the world's chaos doesn't reach your core. Cut the string, not because the world is evil, but because your mind deserves better architecture. Build inner stillness like a fortress. Curate your inputs like sacred ground, and never let noise decide who you are. Because in the end, your focus is your fate, and your attention is your greatest offering. Distraction is not just the enemy of time, it's the thief of destiny. In a world obsessed with speed and spectacle, it's far too easy to lose sight of what matters. You begin the week with clarity, a plan, a purpose, and then one trending video, one friend's success post, one moment of self-doubt, and suddenly you're off course. Not by much, just a slight detour. But if you stay on that detour long enough, you end up living a life that was never truly yours. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." In other words, it's not that the world is too noisy. It's that we haven't anchored our direction deeply enough. Most people drift, not because they're lazy, but because they haven't defined what they're truly committed to. That's why clarity is not optional. It's armor. And one of the most powerful tools to build that armor is what I call identity anchoring. Take a blank page. At the top, write, I am. I stand for. I will not trade my purpose for approval, distraction, or fear. Let it be messy. Let it be raw. But write it. Because when you forget where you're going, your own words will remind you. Let me tell you a quick story. A young man I know had been learning coding for almost a year. He had talent, consistency, but out of nowhere he stopped. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because he saw others succeeding faster in different fields. He said, "Maybe this isn't my path." I told him, "You're not confused. You're just disconnected from your why." So he did something simple but powerful. He wrote a new purpose statement: I build systems to solve real problems. I don't chase trends. I create tools that matter. My pace is not their pace, but my path is mine. He taped that note above his desk. Within a week, he was back in flow. Not because his world changed, but because his anchor did. The world will constantly pull you sideways. It will scream, "Look over here." It will tempt you with shortcuts, shiny metrics, new labels. But power, the real kind, is learning to say no to what's urgent, so you can say yes to what's eternal. This is what I call long game energy. It's not glamorous. It's not rewarded instantly. But it is undeniable over time. You don't need to keep up. You need to keep going. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be deeply present somewhere that matters. So write your anchor. Revisit your why. Say no. Often. And when the winds of distraction try to sway you, stay the course. Because consistency in the right direction is more powerful than speed in the wrong one. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. Every habit we repeat, whether destructive or empowering lives inside a loop. It begins with a cue, a trigger, a notification, a feeling, a moment of boredom. Then comes the routine, the behavior, scrolling, snacking, snapping at someone, running away from the task that actually matters. And finally, a reward, a hit of dopamine, a sense of escape. Or sometimes, just the relief of doing something instead of nothing. The Stoics didn't use neuroscience terms, but they understood this mechanism deeply. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And what are habits, if not the places we keep surrendering control? Most people try to break a bad habit with force. They delete the app. They try willpower. They go cold turkey. And it works for a while. Until life gets heavy again, and they fall back into the same loop. Why? Because they never rewired the system. They removed the behavior, but kept the trigger. They removed the action, but never understood the reward it was feeding. So here's a better way, the Stoic plus strategic approach. First, observe without judgment. Track the loop. When do you reach for your phone? What emotion came just before it? What are you really seeking? Comfort, stimulation, escape, then rewrite the loop. Let's say your cue is feeling overwhelmed. Instead of scrolling mindlessly, what if you paused for 2 minutes and opened your journal? Write a single sentence, right now. I feel underscore, underscore, because underscore, underscore. That small pause interrupts the loop. That reflection creates choice. And over time, choice becomes change. Charles Duhigg calls this a keystone habit, a small shift that triggers a cascade of transformation. You don't have to change everything. You only need to install one new anchor behavior, like replacing scrolling with journaling, or reacting with breathing. Tiny, hinge, massive door. The Stoics had their own version of keystone habits. They began each day with reflection, and they ended it with review. Marcus Aurelius asked himself, "What did I do today? What did I do wrong? What can I do better tomorrow?" Now ask yourself this. If I lived today on repeat, who would I become? That's a Stoic question. But it's also a psychological audit, because you're not just building days, you're building identity through repetition. So don't fight your habits with guilt. Decode them, interrupt them, replace them, reinforce them. The loops don't define you, but what you do with them, that's who you become. Break the loop. Build the life. Your mind isn't tired because it's weak. It's tired because it's been running on outdated software for far too long. Beliefs you picked up as a child, still running. Voices from people who hurt you, still echoing. Fear, based on a past that no longer exists, still calling the shots. You're not broken. You're just overdue for a reset. The Stoics understood this. To them, the mind was a garden, not a battlefield. It needed pruning, daily tending, and sometimes a full redesign. You don't fix the mind by force. You rewire it. By questioning the code it runs on, Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But what does that actually look like? It looks like pausing. When anxiety rises, it looks like asking, is this fear real? Or just familiar? Is this thought mine or inherited? Do I believe this? Or did someone else program it into me? That's Socratic journaling. One question each day. Clean, precise, disruptive. Try this one tonight. What story am I telling myself that no longer deserves to be true? Because most people don't live in cages. They live in scripts. And the longer you follow a limiting story, the more convincing it sounds. Picture a man, a founder. He loses everything. His startup collapses. Silence fills the room. And in that moment, his next thought rewrites everything. I failed. Or, this isn't failure. It's feedback. Now I rebuild. Same man, same moment. Different mental operating systems. That's the Stoic way. Not to deny pain, but to reframe it. Not to collapse, but to evolve. Reigniting the mind is not about thinking more. It's about thinking better, clearer, stronger. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what strength is this pain trying to build in me? Instead of whispering, "I'm not good enough," challenge it. Where did that come from, and why am I still carrying it? This is how you take your mind back. One reframed story at a time. One conscious belief at a time. Burnout isn't the end. It's the sign that your old mindset has reached its limit. So start again, on purpose, with intention. And this time, make sure you're the one writing the code. You don't need more motivation. You need a mental rebirth. And it starts with one honest question. The storm will come. It always does. Plans will collapse. People will change. And life will test you in ways you never expected. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't need to control the storm. You just need to control who you are within it. There's power in that. Cold, quiet power. When the world pulls at your attention, you don't chase, you choose. When people misunderstand you, you don't over-explain. You stand still. When chaos hits, you don't panic. You remember your training. The Stoic path isn't loud. It's deliberate. It's clear. It's controlled. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. So now, as this moment ends, ask yourself, what do I choose to control every day? Your focus, your emotions, your reactions. That one choice repeated daily rewrites everything. You don't need to control the world. You just need to master your place in it. So leave a comment below. Today, I choose to control. Let that be your signal. And if you're building this kind of mind, the kind that stays calm in chaos and moves with quiet strength, then subscribe. This isn't just philosophy. This is warrior code. And you are not walking alone.